Shut up, you. Shut up. No. I'm not the stupid man who said they told him that the house is on fire. Your house is on fire. And then he said, prepare the bed for me to sleep. Sleep where? We are telling you that your house is on fire. And you say you make a bed for me to sleep. Me, I'm not Chifucha Mutuma. The Wanyankore say, Chifucha Mutuma.
Just days after the chaotic elections in Tanzania, where violence, protests, and disputed results dominated the headlines, the ripple effects are already being felt across the border in Uganda. President Yoweri Museveni, one of Africa's longest-serving leaders, is said to be deeply concerned about what he has seen in Tanzania, a youth-led wave of anger, frustration, and defiance against the system. Now, as Uganda moves closer to its own general elections, tension is quietly building, and behind the walls of State House in Entebbe, preparations are being made not for celebrations but for control. The images from Tanzania have caused worry in several East African capitals. Burning cars, police patrols, and young protesters chanting for change, scenes that were once rare in the region, are now reminders of how quickly peace can turn to chaos. In Uganda, President Museveni's advisors have been studying the Tanzanian situation closely. Reports suggest that security briefings have become more frequent. Intelligence units have been ordered to track online conversations, especially on TikTok, on Twitter, and YouTube, where most young Ugandans express their frustrations. Inside Uganda's government, one question keeps coming up. What if it happens here? The last time Uganda faced large-scale youth protests was in 2021, during the heated presidential election where musician turned politician Robert Yoweri, better known as Bobby Wine, challenged Museveni's decades of rule. That election left deep scars with violence, arrests, and loss of lives. Now, as the country prepares for another election cycle, memories of those protests are still fresh. Uganda's population is one of the youngest in the world, with nearly 75% of its citizens below 35 years old. This is both a blessing and a challenge for any leader. To many of these young people, Museveni's government represents the old system, a system that has been in power since 1986, long before most of them were born. They see limited opportunities, unemployment, and a widening gap between the rich and the poor. Social media has become their platform, their voice, and their power. The same energy that fueled protests in Kenya and Tanzania is now slowly rising in Uganda through music, online campaigns, and underground organizing. Intelligence sources say that Museveni's government has been closely watching youth-led online movements, tracking hashtags, monitoring influencers, and even inviting some digital creators for private meetings with government officials. The goal is simple: contain the energy before it spills onto the streets. Behind the public calm phase, President Museveni is preparing for every possible scenario. According to insiders, Uganda's military, the UPDF, has been conducting new urban riot control drills. Special forces under the command of Museveni's son, General Muhoozi, are on standby with new crowd control equipment reportedly imported from abroad. Regional commissioners have been instructed to stay alert and report any unusual gatherings or youth mobilization activities in their areas. In some towns, local police have already begun visiting universities and youth centers, reminding students about the need for peace and warning them against participating in what they call foreign-influenced protests. Museveni's strategy, however, goes beyond force. He knows that controlling a population of young people cannot rely only on the gun. So, parallel to the security plans, a soft power campaign has begun. Museveni has always been a master of timing. He understands when to appear as the strong general and when to show the face of a fatherly statesman. Over the past few months, he has increased his visibility, visiting rural communities, launching projects and addressing youth gatherings. His message is consistent. Uganda's peace is more important than power. He speaks of unity, continuity, and national stability, drawing comparisons to countries that have collapsed after leadership change. He often reminds citizens of the days before 1986, when Uganda was torn apart by wars. To the older generation, this message still holds weight. But to the younger Ugandans, the Gen Z, these speeches sound outdated, almost recycled. They want more than peace. They want jobs, freedom, and fairness. Museveni's advisors know this, which is why they have begun using young faces in government programs and social media campaigns. Influencers are being recruited to share positive stories about government projects to soften the image of the regime and distract from growing frustrations. The government has learned that the real war now happens online before it ever reaches the streets. That is why Uganda's Communication Commission has intensified monitoring of digital platforms. Sources claim that plans are underway to strengthen internet surveillance and to prepare for temporary social media restrictions if protests break out. In 2021, Uganda briefly shut down Facebook and Twitter during elections. Now, many believe a similar digital blackout could happen again, but more sophisticated this time. Some insiders have whispered that new technology has been acquired, tools that can slow down internet speeds or block specific regions from accessing major platforms during unrest. The aim is to prevent coordination and viral content that could fuel demonstrations. At the same time, state-owned media has been tasked with spreading peace messages and documentaries showing the dangers of foreign-funded protests. Museveni's team wants to shape public opinion before the opposition does.
And peace. On the dangerous situation on the Korean Peninsula, where very dangerous instruments of mass extermination are paraded around by the two contending sides, I have got one question. My approach today is just to pose questions. I will not answer all of them, but I will just pose them to you so that you answer them yourselves. I have one question. Who would lose if North Korea and South Korea, those kith and kin, were left alone to discuss their reunification? The Korean nation came into existence ever since 1234 AD, according to the information I saw on the internet. Avoid alcohol, avoid cigarettes, avoid drugs, avoid Malaya, but also study. But above all, fear God. Fear God. Because in the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.